What's up, y'all? Ron Kwok here and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about 4 things you're probably not doing to be an efficient digital and analog note taker using your everyday carry. Jumping right into the first tip is to capture your thoughts immediately. As a creative, you tend to get ideas at random times and all at once. So note-taking is huge for capturing ideas right when I have them, so when it comes time to create, nothing falls through the cracks. I don't pride myself in having such a great memory, maybe y'all can relate to that, but David Allen, author of Getting Things Done, writes, "The mind is for having ideas, not holding them." The first thing I do when I get an idea is pull out my smartphone, open the Todoist app, jot that note down, and throw it into a general bucket. Now, the reason why I use my smartphone is because it's the most accessible to me. It never lives in a pouch, it never lives in a backpack, it's always on my person all the time. With Todoist, it's real quick, everything goes into the same intake. Don't worry about organizing it for now, we'll talk about that later. Now, the only exception I have to my digital intake rule is if I have a thought that's not easily recorded with words. Let's say I want to do a diagram or draw a sketch, something I wanted to flesh out in the moment, then that's when I would tend to be drawn towards a more analog interface. Pen and pad, preferably on dot grid paper. Now, this video is the first in a series I like to call Tech and Topo, where we examine the impact of an ever-increasing presence of digital tools in a traditionally analog practice that we know and love as everyday carry. Now, whether you designed it as such or not, you're probably gonna have one of these smartphones in your daily carry. So might as well maximize the benefit of carrying a digital tool such as your smartphone. Today's carry in question, first up is your smartphone. This is the iPhone 14 Pro. Over on the analog side, you've got your pen. This is the Studio Neat Mark II, but there's a whole slew of awesome high quality EDC pens to choose from. And finally, you've got your assorted notebooks. You've got the Lordstrom 1917, the Field Notes Memo Book, and even the Studio Neat Pano Book. Different strokes for different folks, but we'll talk about what might work best for you in a little bit. Tip number 2 is to keep your digital and analog notes as separate components of your workflow. Earlier, I mentioned a digital intake where I throw all of the random ideas that I get over the course of the day into a single bucket in the form of the Todoist app. The next step in my workflow is to organize those ideas into different buckets depending on the topic. For example, if I remember that I have to go buy something from the grocery store, I'll go ahead and make a new bucket called #personal and throw that idea into that bucket and it stays on the Todoist app. That way I can attach reminders to it, add subtasks, whatever it is that helps me get the job done as a grocery list for shopping. However, if I get an idea for a brand new series I want to feature on YouTube called Tech and Topo, that's something I'll want to brainstorm and thoroughly flesh out. And for that, I want to throw that offline into a pen and pad. Now, I'm a visual person and a visual learner. I enjoy using boxes, check marks, arrows, pointing to different bubbles. It just really works well for me. That's an example of how an idea started in a digital format and transitioned into a more analog interface that works best for how I want to interpret that idea. I hope you're starting to understand that these are all tools in a toolkit, and what works for me will be very different from what might work for you. And the best way to figure that out is to explore and try different things. For me, I used to always think that all my note-taking workflows had to be either all digital or all analog. I've tried bullet journaling, I've tried making an extensive Notion calendar base that has all of my notes in there, but I found personally that it's easiest for me to have sort of a hybrid format. Things begin digitally on the path of least resistance, and from there, once I have time to actually sit down and organize those thoughts, I'll figure out what medium works best for that topic. Let's continue on. Tip number 3 is to decide ahead of time which topics will be recorded digitally or manually. For example, if I decide that grocery lists are better served digitally because of reminders and subtasks and all that good stuff, then I'll make sure that I leave it in the Todoist app, and in the future, all my future grocery lists continue to stay in the Todoist app. I'm not gonna walk up tomorrow and take out a pen and record what I wanna buy on a post-it note and stick it on my desk. Reason being is if you have some notes in the digital space and other notes of the same topic, manual, then you're gonna start losing track of things. Things will get confusing real quickly and you'll start getting jumbled up. If you commit to a certain medium for that certain topic, you can be rest assured that you can refer to that platform every single time and you'll find all of your notes on that topic there reliably. Now, you might be asking, why not just use one platform for everything and call it done? Yes, that might make it easier in terms of keeping track of different platforms, but like I said earlier, some notes are better served on different platforms. Different platforms offer integrations and features that are specific to certain things. You wouldn't use a word processor or pen and pad to crunch a bunch of long numbers and data, and you wouldn't use Google Sheets to capture all of your organic, fluid brainstorming and mind mapping. If you're enjoying these tips on how to take better digital and analog notes in the context of everyday carry, you're really gonna enjoy next week's video on how to improve your everyday carry with simple, easy fixes. That's gonna go up next week, but I'll leave a link right here when it's live. Tip number 4 is to make sure you have the right tools to execute on that workflow. On the digital side, that means having a capable smartphone. For me, that's the iPhone 14 Pro, and the right apps to help you get the job done. I use Todoist to capture all of my ideas and for to-do lists, obviously, and then I use Notion to organize all of my long-term digital notes. On the analog side, of course, it's gonna be pen and pad. I'm using the Studio Neat Mark II. It's a small little pen that folds down when you're not using it and expands to full size when you're writing. It's got a polished steel component with the ink cartridge inside and a matte black Cerakote body to balance things out. Perfect for everyday carry. Now, as far as notebooks go, I've covered the Field Notes memo book, the Lordstrom 1917, as well as even the Studio Neat panel book, which is a larger format book. However, less important to me is the type of book, but more important to me is the paper quality and format. I absolutely prefer dot grid for my paper. Long gone are the days of college ruled when the only thing you can do with it is write in a straight line. I personally find that the dot grid is super useful for creating more fluid and organic drawings, diagrams, sketches to scale. If you wanted to do traditional text note taking, if you wanted to go organic, draw diagrams, sketches, that dot grid paper's got you covered. Doesn't limit you to any specific way of taking notes, which I absolutely love. When making your selections for pen and notebook, realize that taking better notes is only a piece of the larger comprehensive workflow. You'll want to optimize your loadout to maximize your productivity, whether at home or in the field. You'll want to watch this video next to make sure you're running the right gear in your loadout. My personal favorite is to take this loadout to my local coffee shop and crank out a few hours of solid flow state work. Remember to live with purpose, and I'll see you here next. Peace.